Sandra Samuels, host of Boss Lady Live, where I come to you every Monday night with experts to discuss issues of crime and violence, love and relationships, health and wellness, various different topics that affect us right here in Jamaica. Please like and share and subscribe. Click on the notification bell to be advised when you're on. See you then. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Boss Lady Live. Now, I know it's the holidays, but guess what? Stress and problems and COVID, they don't give holidays. So we need to keep pushing whether holiday or not. We have to be here disseminating information, getting the information about how to stay safe in this COVID-19 period. Tonight, we are privileged to have Professor Peter Figueroa. We're going to get the information that we need tonight on COVID-19. I know many of us are in the dark. Many of us don't seek information. Many of us want to get the expert information but don't even know where to go because we just take pretty much what they tell us on the television or on the radio or in the newspaper. Tonight, we have Dr. Figueroa, who is, I would say, intimate with the subject of COVID-19 and the vaccine. So it is indeed a privilege because this is a very busy man. So we're happy that it's a lockdown holiday, so we can catch him. So tonight, I want to say welcome to Dr. Figueroa, and I'm just going to give you a little information on who we have tonight. Tonight, we have Professor J. Peter Figueroa, OJ, BSc, MBBS, DPH, PhD, and FFPH. Whole heap of things that, whole heap of studying that, right? Dr. Figueroa is a professor of public health, epidemiology, and HIV/AIDS at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, where he has led the development of a Doctor of Public Health program. He was a national epidemiologist in Jamaica and led the national HIV outset in 1986 until 2008. He served as Chief Medical Officer from 1997 to 2002. He is chair of PAHO, Technical Advisory Group, and he was a member of WHO's Strategic Advisory Group of Experts in Immunization, that is SAGE, from 2009 to 2015. He is a member of the WHO Working Group on COVID-19 vaccines and a member of the UN AIDS Scientific Expert Panel. He has published widely on communicable diseases, HIV, STIs, and public health, including 160 peer-reviewed papers and 3 books. He has received many awards for his work, including in 2019, a WHO award for leadership in global health. So, we have a man who has spent hours studying and staying or trying to help Jamaica when it comes to health. Well, not even Jamaica alone, because his experience is expansive. Dr. Figueroa, Prof, as I like to call you, welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure tonight to have you. And I want to just start at the beginning. It's what, a year, well, last year, March, February into March, we started hearing, well, it really started from the year before. We started hearing of the news of COVID. I mean, when it was in China, it sounded like the distant future for us. But in no time, by March, Jamaica was in the midst of COVID. And from then we have been trying to manage COVID. What exactly is COVID? And to the best of your knowledge, how did COVID start, sir?
Okay. So COVID appears to have started in late December of 2019 in China, a city called Wuhan, where they noticed that there were several score persons, about 40, who were admitted to hospital with pneumonia. And they tracked these persons back to a special animal market, a food market in Wuhan. And they speculated that this was a virus that had jumped from animals, probably bats, to humans and causing the symptoms that we're now familiar with.
Yes.
So the exact origins are still not sure. There have been one or two papers that suggest that the virus may have been circulating even before that in southern China. But anyway, the outbreak exploded in Wuhan, and after some initial hesitation, it came to the attention of the authorities in China. By early December, the Chinese scientists actually sequenced the genome of the virus that was causing the disease. In other words, the genetic code, and they shared it with scientists internationally. Of course, from China, this disease, COVID, which is caused by a coronavirus. Now, a coronavirus is quite common, but usually it's not that severe. It causes a common cold. But it did cause an acute SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, in 2003. And in the Mediterranean, it also caused another respiratory syndrome, MERS, in 2012. So on two previous occasions, coronaviruses had caused serious disease. And this is the third occasion where we have the pandemic.
Wow. And it spread very, very quickly worldwide. And I mean, people are saying, some people don't think it's real. Some people are saying they don't know, we don't know exactly how it spread. How exactly is COVID-19 transmitted from one person to the next?
It is spread just like other respiratory infections, like flu or the common cold, where persons, when they're talking, blowing their nose, sneezing, coughing, or singing, the spit that comes from their nose and their mouth contains the virus. And of course, that virus can stay suspended in the air if you're close to a person. And that is what someone breathes in and becomes infected. It appears also that if your hands get contaminated and you touch your mouth, your nose, or your eyes, you can transmit as well. But it's mainly a respiratory type illness spread by droplet spread. The thing is that persons who have symptoms of cough, fever, cold, they are the ones who primarily spread it. But a couple days before they are sick, they are infectious, highly infectious, and can spread it during that period before they are sick. And then there are persons who may not have any symptoms at all, and they could be carrying the germ, the virus that causes the disease, and spread it from one person to another without even realizing that they themselves are infected.
Is it genetics why some people have symptoms and some people don't, or is it based on your immune system, or is there something that you can do to give yourself the best chance of not coming down with COVID-19. This is separate and apart from, as government has suggested, wearing your mask, washing your hands, or using a alcohol-based sanitizer. Is there anything we can do in terms of health-wise to keep our immune system, assuming that once your immune system is at a particular level, you give yourself a fighting chance?
Well, it's always good if you eat properly, a proper diet, and you're not overweight, you exercise, you get your sleep, and you keep yourself healthy, then it means that your immune system is better prepared than the person who is otherwise ill, who is not physically active, does not eat properly, is overweight, or who has a range of other medical conditions.
Yes.
However,
yes.
That alone, even if you're someone who is normally healthy, that does not guarantee that you are going to avoid becoming infected. Now, we're still learning about this disease and the virus that causes it, because clearly what we are seeing is that the older you are, especially if you're older than 60, 70, 80, then you are more at risk that if you get the infection, you are likely to get a more severe disease, and the risk of actually dying is much greater than among young people. It seems as if, for reasons not fully understood, young children do not seem to become readily affected by this virus, and they don't seem to play a big role in transmitting it, which is different to some of the other respiratory infections. But teenagers who mix a lot and move around a lot, they appear on the whole to remain healthy, but they can spread the infection. So we don't understand it fully, but persons who are older, and as you get older, your immune system is not as strong. And these are the persons who, when they get it, tend to get more severe disease and are more at risk of dying from it.
What are some of the symptoms of COVID-19? I'm not sure it's clear out there in the public, because to me it seems like a wide variety of symptoms. So just give us an overview as to what the symptoms
Absolutely.
are.
So, people may have a cough, fever, feeling tired, headache, muscle pain, chills, any of those symptoms. In addition, we notice that people lose a sense of taste and sense of smell, and they may lose their appetite. During this period, anyone who loses their sense of smell or sense of taste, it is COVID until proven otherwise. So there are a range of symptoms. Some people even present with diarrhea, vomiting, abdominal pain. So headache is, so you just have to be alert for any of these symptoms. And then, of course, if you're concerned that you may have COVID, then you can do a test, either an antigen test or the PCR test, which will say, yes, you have COVID.
What's the difference? Prof?
Well, the PCR test is much more sensitive. For both tests, they put a swab up your nose or in your mouth, and then they put it in a tube and take it to the lab. But the PCR test is much more sensitive. It's much more likely to tell you, yes, you have it or you don't have it. With the antigen test, it's a more rapid test. If you don't have symptoms, but you have the virus, then the antigen test will only pick it up maybe 30% of the time. If you do have symptoms and you do the antigen test, 60% of the times, it will identify that you have COVID. But you could do an antigen test and it says negative, and in fact, you still have COVID.
There are some diseases under what they call the underlying diseases, or what is it's called
Comorbid conditions.
comorbid conditions.
Yes.
Break that down for us in layman language.
Yeah, well, morbid just means ill, and they say co because it's along with the main problem that we're looking at. So these are just persons who have a range of illnesses, some of which are very common. Cardiovascular disease, that is heart disease, chronic kidney disease, hypertension, lung disease, right? Any of these conditions would be considered comorbid conditions. So we're finding that people, obesity, right? Overweight is a comorbid condition. We're finding that people who have any of these conditions, if they get infected and develop COVID, then they run the risk of having a severe course of the disease. So it is important that persons who have these kind of underlying conditions are very, very careful to avoid becoming infected.
My little mentee said to me in the week, Auntie, it seems as if from COVID coming, people stop dying of other things, because it would appear to her that since COVID coming, you don't hear anybody dying of cancer anymore, you don't hear anybody dying of heart, you don't hear anybody, because everything is now, COVID is responsible for most of deaths these days. You don't really hear much about other people talking about other ailments, but it is the complication from, so that we understand, it's a complication from, or should I say, the COVID-19 weakens the system even further, and then these diseases, it reduces your ability to fight. Is that what happens?
Yes, absolutely. So we are seeing deaths from COVID. We're now over 600 deaths in Jamaica due to COVID, and we've probably missed quite a few persons who have died of COVID, but it is not identified clearly as COVID. But people do continue to die from heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes. Diabetes is also a comorbid condition. People are continuing to die from these conditions. And it is very important that people who have these conditions, they have to make sure to stay on their medication, keep in touch with their doctor to ensure that they are managing these conditions appropriately and staying as safe as possible, wearing the mask, hand hygiene, washing the hands, physical distance from other people, especially indoors. Many people go indoors at work and take off their mask when they need to keep it on. If they get tired of wearing the mask, it's better they go outside in the open air, away from other people, and just relax for 5 or 10 minutes without the mask, and then put the mask back on and go back indoors.
I think that's what happens mainly in a lot of the work environment, because a lot of people are comfortable with their co-workers. So once they maybe customers are not there, they let down their guards and they take off the mask and they get to socialize. And that is how I guess it is spreading more than we want it to spread. Now,
and in fact, Sandra, yes, even among health workers, they're finding clearly health workers are at tremendous risk. They have to put on special protective gear, wear the mask, sometimes a face guard, goggles, whatever. They do all of that, And sometimes it is when they are socializing with their colleagues, having lunch together, relaxing together, that's when they put down their guard and they get it from one another. So for everyone at the workplace, including health workers, you have to maintain your guard at all times.
Prof, is COVID-19 something that you can get more than once?
Yeah, it's unusual. It's unusual. Most people who get COVID develop immunity. Their body develops immunity as they recover from the disease. They develop protection against it. And usually that protection lasts at least 6 months. However, maybe less than 1 in 100
yes,
appears to be susceptible to reinfection. Maybe it's a different variant of COVID because, as you know, the virus that causes COVID tends to mutate. Its genetic code changes because it keeps multiplying frequently and rapidly. So you get mutations, and there have been a number of COVID variants that the mutation appears to make it more effective in transmission. It transmits from one person to another more effectively. They identified one in the UK, and that has now spread to many countries, another in South Africa, and another variant in northern Brazil, and they are increasingly finding other variants. But those three that I mentioned are the primary ones that seem to transmit more rapidly, and it appears that they may cause more severe illness in persons that they infect. So we don't understand why these minority of persons get COVID, develop immunity, but then get infected again. We don't understand that fully. Most persons are protected for at least 6 months, and we're hoping that that natural immunity and protection will last at least a year or a few years. Otherwise, it means we'll have to be vaccinating people. You know, we're hoping the vaccine also will convey immunity on the people who are vaccinated, and that we don't know how long that protection will last. We're hoping it will last at least a few years, but it's quite likely that in a couple of years, people who are vaccinated may still need a booster dose to ensure their immunity is strong.
Okay, so there's no set time for it, because Anika was asking how long does the virus stay in the body? Is there a set time, or you don't know?
Yeah, well, this is an important question. So usually if someone is exposed to the virus, you're going to develop symptoms within 2 weeks. Most people develop it within a week, but at least within 2 weeks, you're going to develop symptoms. A couple days before you develop symptoms, the cough, the fever, the headache, before you get those, a couple days, you become infectious to other persons, even though you have no symptoms.
Infectious before you start showing symptoms.
Yes, very infectious. Very infectious. Yes. So you don't know you're ill yet, and yet you're highly infectious for about 2 to 3 days. Then you become ill, and you may self-isolate if you follow the instructions. You stay home, stick to yourself, and try not to infect other family members or other persons in the household. Now, most persons will have a mild disease process, just like the flu, and within a few days, they recover. Some people are a little more ill, and, you know, between 7 days to 10 days, they may even be quite ill. They have to stay in bed, they feel weak, they have high fever, they're coughing. When people reach that stage, we like to monitor them with a little finger oximeter, a little instrument. In fact, I have one right here that I can show you. And you just put it on the middle finger, and it measures the oxygen saturation in the blood. And this is one way of checking up on whether you're getting enough oxygen through the lungs into the blood. So if that shows that you're not getting enough oxygen, then we need to start giving you certain treatment. Some people are even treated at home. But the point is, to go back to your question, is that within 7 to 10 days, most people are beginning to recover. If they have difficulty breathing, or they get very ill, or their oxygen saturation goes down too low, then they need to be admitted in hospital. But if they clear their symptoms and they no longer have symptoms after 7 to 10 days, once they are 3 clear days without any symptoms, then usually they are no longer infectious. Now, if you do a PCR test at that time, the PCR test may still be positive, but you have to be careful, because this can be the virus that the swab is finding, but that virus, and it tests positive, but the virus is no longer able to multiply and it can't infect other people. So this is something we're beginning to understand. So usually if your symptoms have cleared after 10 days, then the PCR test can actually be misleading. You can get a false positive.
Okay.
But if you are severely ill and have to go to the hospital, then the virus may stay alive in your body longer, causing the disease process.
Okay. All right. So we're now getting, well, Jamaica has started their vaccine program. There are several vaccines on the market, or several vaccines that are have been given from India, from China, from USA, from all over. What are the ones that we are getting here? That's number one. And two, what is the fundamental difference between them?
Yeah, well, all the vaccines that have been approved are excellent vaccines. Now, before a vaccine can be approved, it has to undergo very rigorous testing. You actually have 3 different phases. They start with animal studies, then they start with a handful of young, healthy adults. Then they look at a few hundred persons, and then they have to do a phase 3 trial in which they study the vaccine in over 30 to 40,000 people. And what you do is you give either half or 3/4 of these people the vaccine, and you give the other half or a quarter of them what we call a placebo, like a saline injection. So if you're getting an injection with a vaccine in your shoulder, then that's the person in one group, the vaccine group. The other people get the placebo, the saline injection in their shoulder. And you compare how many people get ill over the next few months. And that is how they determine that the vaccine is efficacious. So what they've found now in all the studies, that the vaccines that are currently available and approved, all of them are at least 70 to 90% efficacious. But you can't strictly compare one vaccine to another, because some vaccines are put in trials among people like health workers who are at high risk of becoming infected. So the efficacy of that vaccine in that trial may only be 80%, but the vaccine may be equally good in practice to another vaccine that was tested among the general population, where the risk of infection was not as strong as it is among health workers. But anyway, the point is, all the vaccines that we have are highly effective and they are safe. When you weigh the risk of COVID, of getting COVID and trying to prevent it, or the risk of getting severe COVID and needing to go to a hospital and possibly dying, and you look at the fact that the vaccines can prevent you getting COVID, and all of the vaccines are at least 90% or more effective against severe COVID. So all the vaccines are good. Now, in the US, they've been using a new type of vaccine called the messenger RNA. It's just a new type of vaccine that is very sophisticated. What it does is they give you an injection in your arm, and that vaccine now, what it puts into your muscle, it goes into your cell, and there is just a little set of proteins, special proteins, that are able to harness the machinery in the cytoplasm of the cell, not in the nucleus, which is the headquarters of the cell, but just in the cytoplasm. And it produces proteins that mimic the spike protein of the coronavirus that causes COVID. And your body, as soon as you start producing those proteins, your body now responds to them and develops immunity, protection against the real spike protein and the real coronavirus. Those vaccines are highly effective and very safe. Now, when they finished the trials and they started to vaccinate hundreds, thousands, then millions of people in the United States, they found that maybe 2 to 4 persons per million doses, they found that you may have a severe allergic reaction, anaphylaxis, that requires immediate medical attention, where you have to give an adrenaline injection, antihistamine injection, and make sure the person's vascular system does not collapse. There have been no deaths, and what they now say is that if you have a history of anaphylaxis to a previous injection or to a vaccine, don't take those messenger RNA vaccines. That's the Pfizer and the Moderna. So far, we've not had either of those, although I understand we may be getting some Moderna. The vaccine that we have got is the AstraZeneca. Now, the AstraZeneca, millions of people, over 20 million, many more than that, have now got it in England, Europe, and many countries, including Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean. And it is a superb vaccine. It's a more traditional type of vaccine. What they do is that they take a different virus that some cousins of that virus can cause a common cold, but they take the shell of that virus. It can't multiply. It's inactivated. And they put some proteins in it, inject it into your muscle, and the same thing happens. That's a way of getting it into your cells, and then our cells produce proteins that mimic the spike protein of the coronavirus, and the body develops immunity. For all of these vaccines, you need 2 doses of the vaccine. There's another vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that they give 1 dose. But they're looking, you get good protection, but they're doing a study right now to see whether you'd get even better protection if they did 2 doses instead of 1 dose. But the vaccines that we have are excellent. They definitely protect you against severe COVID, and most people are protected against any form of COVID. Now, with the AstraZeneca, they recently, when they began to roll it out in Europe, in Germany, they did notice among some of the younger persons who were getting the vaccine, they were vaccinating a lot of nurses and some younger adults, and they did notice a cluster of a very unusual clot which affects the veins going to the brain. When you actually compare the number of persons who get any form of blood clot in persons who get the vaccine, it is less than the expected number of blood clots that you would expect in a general population, because maybe 5 out of every 1,000 persons over the age of 50 will get a blood clot in the normal course of life. So every year we're seeing many patients who go to the doctor or to the hospital because they have symptoms of blood clots and we have to treat them. So if you look overall at the number of blood clots following vaccination, it is less than the expected number. But there is this highly unusual condition which has been described medically in different situations, in a different situation, where you get a blood clot and you also can get some bleeding. So they've put out a warning that maybe 1 out of 1,000,000 persons, maybe a few more than 1 in 1,000,000, let's say anywhere between 1 to 4 in 1,000,000, may get this blood clot. We can't rule it out that it may be associated with the vaccine. But if you look at the odds of someone getting COVID during this surge, when I think of the number of patients that I have had alone who have got COVID, I would think that at least 1 out of 5 of my patients have now got COVID. I don't know if I'm just speculating, but even if it's 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, and then of those who get COVID, especially if they're older, the risk that an older person faces of getting severe COVID and requiring hospitalization, I mean, that is at least 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10 are going to end up in hospital among older patients. So the risk benefit, when you compare the value of the vaccine compared to this very rare side effect, is just like the rare side effect of anaphylaxis with the messenger RNAs vaccines. It is clearly much, much better to get the vaccine and to be protected. Now, I notice that Sandra seems to have lost her connection. So maybe I will just keep talking until she comes back. I know one of the concerns that people have is how were they able to prepare these vaccines so quickly? And this is important because research on coronavirus, a vaccine against coronavirus, goes back many years and many decades. And when we had SARS in 2003, which had a fatality of nearly 1 in 3, 30% fatality rate with SARS, that is a severe acute respiratory syndrome, then there was significant research invested into finding a vaccine against SARS, which is a coronavirus. And when the Chinese actually sequenced the gene that causes COVID, and they shared this in January of last year, they shared it with the scientific community. There were two companies in particular, Pfizer BioNTech, which is really two companies working together, and Oxford AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is a big British pharmaceutical company, and Oxford University working together. They were preparing a coronavirus. So when they got the genetic sequence of the COVID virus, what they did is they just adjusted the vaccine that they were preparing and made a vaccine against COVID. And therefore they were able, within a couple weeks, they were able to have a COVID vaccine ready that they could then start trials in animals and then in humans. They were right out of the blocks. And of course, because this was a pandemic, a lot of money was also put into speeding up the trials and beefing up the manufacturing capacity. Sandra, we lost you for a little bit, so I just kept speaking.
Right, for a few minutes. But so I had to put my phone, so I'm better. I'm not home, you see, I'm in the grill, so I'm at the mercy of a public Wi-Fi. So thank you so much for keeping the live going until, as I missed out that part. So I hope my guests could have heard you. I'm hoping, because we never came off live. So I'm hoping that they heard you. But maybe I have a few questions here. Anika is saying, let's say I take the vaccine because of medical issues. Is there any other food or natural herbal to take that provides the protein? And Janet is asking, the virus is so frightening. She's making a statement. She says the virus is so frightening, but she wants to know if there are any herbs. Anika wants to know if there are any herbs. You know, people are afraid of the virus. Two questions I have for you. Is there anybody that shouldn't take the virus? Anybody with these comorbid situations, if they should take the virus? And if instead of the vaccine, if a natural approach is as safe as
the natural approach by itself is not going to protect you against the virus. I mean, there are things that you can do to sort of strengthen your immune system. If you're not getting enough sleep, people working around the clock or partying too much and only getting 4 to 6 hours sleep at night, their immune system is going to go down. So if they get a proper sleep of 7 hours, 7 to 8 hours a night, that helps them to boost their immune system. If they're not eating properly or they're deficient in certain vitamins, then of course, if they take a multivitamin or vitamin C, vitamin D, and eat properly, get their sleep, then that will improve their basic immunity. But none of that is going to give you the protection that you actually do need to protect you from becoming infected from the virus. There are very few people, I wasn't hearing you just then, Not hearing you. So I'll just go ahead. But I don't know why I'm not hearing.
Oh,
Maybe
sorry,
because you.
I have some background noise. I tend to be muting at times. So sorry.
Right.
So, Mitzi was asking what might be some of the effects that taking the vaccine can have on someone with comorbidities.
Right. So first, though, let me complete answering the previous question, and I'll
Yes.
come to that.
Yes. Sorry
So,
about that.
yeah, so that there are very few persons who should not take the vaccine. I mentioned that those persons who have had an anaphylactic reaction to a vaccine or an injection, they should not take the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. I mean, some people, if you have a food allergy or a history of other allergies, you can still take the vaccine, no problem. Persons with comorbidities can take the vaccine. But if someone is acutely ill with something else, let's say they have breast cancer or they're having a severe disease of any kind, then it's better that they recover from that before they take the vaccine. If they are immunodeficient, let's say someone like HIV, once they're on their medications or they're not very ill, definitely you must take the vaccine because you may be at more risk if you get the COVID. So only if you are actually undertaking chemotherapy for a cancer, we would say, okay, hold off, recover from the chemotherapy, and then we give you the vaccine. If you've been infected, you can still take the vaccine because it will boost your immunity. But we suggest wait 4 to 6 months because there's a shortage of vaccine and you already have natural protection. Now, when you do take the vaccine, then you may feel some reaction to the vaccine. Many people feel a little local swelling and tenderness in their arm where they get the injection, because this is a sign that the body is reacting to and responding to the vaccine. They may get a little fever, headache, tiredness, but usually that does not last for more than a day or so. Now it's interesting because this happened in Barbados and it happened in Jamaica also. When they started vaccinating the health workers, many of the health workers, of course, are young adults. They're not at my age. They're young adults and their immune system is strong. And some of them had headache and fever and were so tired, they had to stay at home for a day or two. They couldn't go to work. But
Yes.
all it means is that the body's immune system is responding to the vaccine and you're developing the protection against the virus. So you just take 2 paracetamol or Panadol and rest, and within a day or two, you're okay.
Is it safe for pregnant women or women considering getting pregnant to take the vaccine?
Yes, right now the advice is that each person should make their own decision in consultation with their doctor whether, if you're pregnant, you take the vaccine. The reason we say that is because in the vaccine trials, pregnant women were not included.
Okay.
There were women included, and some of them became pregnant, and they're being followed to make sure that there's no problem. So far, there is no evidence whatsoever that the vaccine causes any problem either to the mother or to the unborn child. But they want to gather more information about that before they give a regular advice to say, well, if you're pregnant, you can just take the vaccine. But if you're having a surge of cases in the community, and you're at risk, or you're a health worker and you may get pregnant or you are pregnant, it's probably better for you to take the vaccine to protect you from becoming ill. Because what we are seeing is that women who are pregnant may have more severe disease than women who are not pregnant. So the
Okay.
vaccine would help to protect you from becoming infected and prevent you from getting a severe disease, even if you had a mild disease.
But Prof, the injection, the vaccine, does it prevent you from getting COVID, or it just prevents you from dying from COVID? Because
Well,
I was
remember, you know, in
that
life, very
even with
few,
the vaccine, you can still get COVID.
yes, it's unusual, right? In other words, when we say that a vaccine is 90% effective, then it
Yes,
still means that some people, even though they're vaccinated, they may still develop symptoms of COVID. However, those symptoms are usually mild. You don't get severe disease. So in life, very few things are 100%. So the vaccine is not 100%
no,
protective.
not me.
Right now, it appears to be nearly 100% protective against severe disease. But you have to remember a number of things. Let's say I get a vaccine yesterday. I could be exposed to someone tomorrow and
Yes,
develop COVID because my body has not even developed any
the
immunity
immunity
or
as yet.
protective response. With your first
I get
dose, it usually takes at least 2 weeks to 4 weeks before you really develop any protection. And that protection
I
is
get
not 100%. It may be 70%. And then
so
after you get your second dose, that takes you up to 90% protection.
so if you take only one injection, it's not going to give you the full coverage if you don't take the second injection.
That's correct. That's correct. And we're
What about,
also finding, Mhm.
yes,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, we're
No, you were
finding
gonna
with
say
the AstraZeneca vaccine, you take
yes,
the
sir.
first dose. If you get the second dose at 8 to 12 weeks, it seems to be more effective than if you took the second dose at 4 weeks.
Okay. What about persons with, let's say, who are sicklers, who have other different diseases like lupus, uh, um, any kind of those, what I like to call them debilitating diseases that they can have crises. What about
Yeah,
those
these
persons?
these are common diseases in Jamaica also.
Yes.
And these we would encourage all these people to take the vaccine to be protected from COVID. Only if the person was having a severe attack of lupus, which
Yes.
required them to be on steroids or something like that, then we'd say, okay, overcome that acute attack, settle down, and then take the vaccine. Same thing with sickle cell. If you were having a particular crisis, then we say recover from that and then get the vaccine. But definitely get the vaccine at your first opportunity once you're not acutely ill from your underlying condition.
Sir, are you hearing me?
Go again. You faded.
Oh, sorry. Canute is saying, what is the reaction of vaccine with aspirin? Is there any contradiction with aspirin?
No, I don't think there's a problem, but we usually recommend that if you are having symptoms, with fever, or if you're reacting to the vaccine and you have a bit of headache and fever, we would usually recommend cetamol, paracetamol, Panadol, or even Brufen rather than aspirin.
Canute is saying that he took his order. He
He
says
took what?
he took it at 11 p.m. He says he took his at 11 p.m. and at
Yeah.
9:45 yesterday, I just have a slight pain in the arm. Should I expect other side effects later? But then Canute, we don't know which one you took, or does it really
Well, it
matter?
doesn't matter which one he took. He may or may not have other side effects from the vaccine. It's not unusual to have a slight pain in the arm. You know, it's just like if a friend come up to you and give you a little punch in the arm. I mean, he can manage that. But he could still develop a little fever or headache or tired feeling tomorrow. But it will pass within a day or two for most persons.
My friend's mother is 99 years old. She's asking if someone 99, if it makes sense to give somebody 99 injection.
Of course, because we are hoping that she will live another few years, and COVID is all around us. So, of course, give her dose. In fact, she should have got it already. She is high up on the list. So the only very old persons who we say that you have to think about is that people who are very old and very frail. They're so frail that, you know, they're just in bed and they're on the edge. Then you may say, okay. But no, once you can celebrate your 100th birthday, you must get your vaccine.
I believe your answer to this question, Janet is asking how long after the first shot. I think it did say 4 weeks.
Yes, 2 to 4 weeks before, some protection, but the protection is not complete until you get the second dose. And after you get the second,
how long before the second shot?
the second shot.
After the first shot, the second shot.
Yeah, with the AstraZeneca, we are saying 8 to 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
And 12 weeks is better than 8 weeks. With the Pfizer and the Moderna, they are giving it after 4 weeks. Although in the UK, they are giving everyone a first dose, and they're giving as many people as possible first doses. So even with the Pfizer that they are using in the UK, they are giving it after 4 weeks. Some people even 2 or 3 months after.
Okay.
And they will be fully protected. We're quite confident with that.
What about children?
Children, they're now doing trials in children. Pfizer just reported a trial in children, and they said that it was 100% effective. I haven't actually seen the details of their study, but they seem to have got good results in children. So I think it's more important that we complete vaccination among the elderly, the health workers, the frontline essential workers, and the adults, and then we come to the children. By that time, we should have other studies showing that some of the other vaccines can be given in children also.
But Doc, as we want to start back school and face-to-face school, how is that going to work if the kids are going to go out to school and then come back home to their parents? Wouldn't they be transfers of the COVID? I mean, if they can pick it up and have no symptoms.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Certainly among the younger children under 10 years of age, the studies appear to show that those children don't seem to transmit the vaccine so readily. Most of the younger children seem to get their infection from their parent or another member of the household. So I think we should vaccinate our teachers, the everyone in primary school, basic school. I think once we have the teachers vaccinated and you just maintain the protective measures, I think they can go back to school. The main problem, of course, is transport. And what they should do is organize that special buses take the children to school if necessary. The older teenagers, those we may have to get vaccinated. But again, I think the priority should be vaccinating the teachers, maintaining the physical distance and the mask wearing, and they should be able to go to school.
Okay. Emil is asking, Emil says, we hear about the COVID virus changing and that there are now a few different types. Going forward, what does the AstraZeneca or Pfizer, Moderna, etc. cover all variants of COVID?
Mhm.
Or might we need to get several different vaccines or vaccine variants over time?
Yeah, this is an important question that is being monitored very closely now. Currently, it appears that the current vaccines we have still provide protection to all the variants, to all the different variants, but they are already starting to look at how they can improve the current vaccines to ensure that they are effective against the current and any new variants. But it is something we're going to have to monitor very, very closely, because right now, initially in the US, once they started vaccinating, the number of cases declined rapidly. The number of hospitalizations, the number of deaths came down really rapidly. Then it leveled off. And they're noting that in a few states, they're finding an increase of cases. And they're thinking that this may be due to premature removal of masks and not following the protocols, as well as maybe the UK variant, the variant that they found in the UK, has now spread in parts of the US. But right now, all the vaccines are still protective against all the current variants.
Doc, how much, or should I say, how many Jamaicans would have to be vaccinated for us to see the light of day? For want of
Yes,
a better.
this is a tough question. I
What
think,
percentage, roughly?
yeah, I think we're going to have to get over 60%, and it may be higher. It may be higher, but any number of Jamaicans who are vaccinated will help. Any number. Of course, there's a huge challenge getting an adequate amount of vaccine doses quickly. But as we get the vaccine, once we roll it out, it means that if our health workers and our elderly get vaccinated, it means that right there, you're reducing a significant number of, you're protecting important people on the front line, and you are reducing the number of severe cases and deaths in the elderly, so that, we'll be in a much, much better position. So quite frankly, if we can get 20% of our population, let's say 80% of our elderly, all our health workers and essential workers, I think we'll be in a much, much better position. But we will need to really control fully. We probably need between 60 to 80% of the population vaccinated.
Realistically, Doc, where do you see when do you see this get into a level of normalcy.
I regret to say we're going to have some patience. I know people are getting impatient. Can you imagine? We locked down for the whole weekend. You locked down in Negril. So you're lucky.
Yeah,
But you know, normally on a weekend like this, I would walk every day outdoors for my own health, my physical and mental health. You know, so it's hard on people. It's hard on people. But we have to be patient, and we have to do our best, support each other to stick to the protocols. Because right now, nearly, you know, so many people are infected, so many people are getting infected. The hospitals are under severe stress. If you think of the number of deaths that we've had just in the last month or two, we're now over 600 deaths. So we just have to try and exert self-discipline and patience. We're not getting the vaccine quickly enough in order to vaccinate people at the pace that we would really like to. But I would really encourage, especially the elderly and the frontline workers, come and get vaccinated now. And when more vaccine comes, let's get our people vaccinated. And we have to help some of the elderly to come and get the vaccine. You know, those who are educated, you know, understand the need for it. Some of our people are not so sure. They're more cautious. They're hesitant. They need a little support and encouragement, as well as help to take them to the vaccination centers and get them vaccinated. So I'm hoping that we can look out for one another and help each other that way. And it will definitely reduce the number of deaths and reduce the surge that we're now having.
Persons are skeptical, Doc, about, you know, how they, in their estimation, they came up with a vaccine very quickly. Because they're saying that, you know, vaccines normally take a long time, but they're not really looking at the age that we're in terms of, you know, internet and the ability to collect information quickly and all of that. So just say a little snippet on that, because
well, Sandra, when we lost you, when we lost you, I took the opportunity to explain how it is that we got the vaccine so quickly, because I did explain that as soon some of the companies were actually trying to produce a vaccine against coronavirus. So once we got the COVID and the Chinese scientists shared the genetic code, they just changed a little bit in the vaccine that they were already making against SARS and turned it into a vaccine against COVID. So it wasn't just work that was going on in the past year. It was actually going on over 10, 15 years.
Okay, folks, we have just a few minutes before we wrap up. If you have any questions, please just shoot us the questions now as Doc wraps up. Doc, give us, I like to leave giving, I don't want to say instructions, but like a few guidelines as to, I mean, we know that the basics, how to stay safe going forward. What would you, I'm giving you the platform to say exactly what you want to say to Jamaica and the rest of the world, because it will be on, it's live on YouTube as well, and it will be posted on YouTube and Facebook. So just
okay. I have a co-worker.
The floor, Doc.
I have a co-worker, right, who worked with me for many years, and she lost both her sister and her mother from COVID, virtually in the same day or within 2 days, right? The sister didn't even seem that ill. But when I saw her and I tested her oxygen with the little meter, it was so low. She was just feeling a little tired, slightly breathless. I sent her to KPH immediately, right? Now, this is one family, and they lost the mother and the sister, right? I want to ask all of us, do we know how many people we know that we have lost already, right? Some of us have lost colleagues that we've known for many years, for decades, health workers, right? Who we have lost, globally, thousands, tens of thousands of nurses, doctors, and other health workers, plus other frontline workers, have lost their lives, right? So what I'm asking people to do is just pause, especially the younger people, because most young people, the odds of them getting severely ill, much less dying, is very small. But they belong to a family where they have parents, uncles, aunts, neighbors, friends who are older and who are at risk of severe COVID. So we mustn't just think of ourselves alone, and bear in mind that even before, if you get COVID, the 2 or 3 days before you know that you have symptoms, you are highly infectious and can spread it. So don't wait to get symptoms to wear your mask and maintain your physical distance. Because in fact, you, without realizing it, may be passing it to someone within your very neighborhood, your family, your friends, or an elder. So I'm just asking people to think this through and think what it means, and know we are fed up with the measures, but sometimes in life you have to take the long view. You have to just realize sometimes you just have to be patient and show the self-discipline that all of us have when we need to exert it. And we're all in this together, right? Let us not be the person who unknowingly passes on the infection to someone else. The vaccine is effective, it is safe. When your turn comes, make sure you get it. And since right now we're vaccinating the elders, any elder you know, make sure you encourage, support, and help them to get vaccinated. And we'll get through this. We need to stick together just for a few more months on this, and then we will be in a much better place. That's my message, boss lady.
Yes, Doc. And I just want to say, although I am in the grill with my one friend, we have been social distancing. I mean, you have persons wearing their masks. Everybody stick to pretty much their self or their group. And so, although I'm out of town because I don't like being at home stuck, I like being in the open air on a beach somewhere. I mean, we stay by ourselves, social distancing. We're aware the only persons we come in contact with, and I mean, you get sprayed along the way everywhere you go, is the persons who prepare your meals, pretty much, or the persons who give you hand you towels and those. And they down here they are highly sensitized. I can speak. I mean, or should I say myself or my girlfriend can speak um, very highly of what we have experienced. Everybody's highly sensitive when it comes to the COVID-19 protocols. So I'm going to add my 2 cents worth to it. Um, at Totally Male, we are very highly sensitive, as you can attest to as well. Prof. We are
Yeah.
very
Yes.
sensitive to COVID-19 at Total Email as well. And so as a service provider, we also have to provide a very sanitized environment and to ensure that we don't spread anything in our company as well. So if everybody does what they're supposed to do, everybody follows the protocol, wear their mask, use an alcohol-based sanitizer, or one that is passed by the government, we should get through this alive. Oh, Canute says, I'm worried about Jamaica, but please be safe. He's in Florida. So he is saying that they are being vaccinated left, right, and center, because he's saying, good question. When I asked about the 60%, when I asked and you said over 60% will have to be vaccinated, he was saying, good question. To get to 60% means more vaccine doses. Will Jamaica reach there? And he says, how can COVAX help Jamaica? You know, that kind of thing. So, boy, it's a challenge, and we understand that people get in cabin fever. How I cope, I still go walking. For every chance we get, myself and my staff, we go at different, and we all do everything open air. There's nothing that we try to go different spots, and we look for the spots that are least populated, but to keep mental wellness, and to make you feel as if you're still a part of society, still out there, as my staff like to say, this is our party. When we go walking or when we go jogging, this is our party. So we switch our partying to walking and doing exercise and keeping our mental capacity, well. So, Doc, I just really want to say thank you so much, because a lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are still not believing that COVID-19 does exist. I mean, surprisingly so, because people are dying. They feel some of it is cooked up or it's a money maker. But we just have to do what we have to do. Thank you so much. Persons are saying excellent session, and thank you very much for all the information. I think we got a lot of questions answered. I know you're a busy man, and I really, really appreciate you coming on tonight, taking time out of your Easter Monday to spend with us. But it is for a worthy cause. And with knowledge comes understanding, and with understanding comes, I would say, safety, health, and wellness. So you have to arm yourself with the knowledge so that you know exactly what to do. And these persons are persons of character. I don't carry anybody who does not know what they're talking about. This is somebody that works in the field day in, day out, is fully on top of the knowledge. So please watch this program over and over and over. Get the information that you need. And I see you next week, same place, same time, with more information as to how we can work, live, raise our families, and stay healthy in Jamaica, land we love. Stay safe. See you next week. Have a good night. Thanks again, Doc. See you soon.
Right.
Good night. Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Good night.